Welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy, Base the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe. If you have a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between, it's appreciated. As you guys know, this one was supposed to come out yesterday evening, but it's coming out brand spanking early in the morning for you. So that's why, as you can see from the last video to this one, yes, same clothes. It will be the same clothes throughout all the segments. They were both filmed at the same time. Just making sure everyone gets that, because yeah, it's not about a lack of wardrobe. It's just, yeah, some people just, they ain't a bit clued on to them kind of things. But with that being said, there's a few things to chat about. So without further ado, let's get into it. So off the back of Boots' less than stellar performance against Karen Chukuzan, I think as they've started to call him now, I think that's how you pronounce it, Chukuzan, or Chukudzian, something like that. Anyway, it looks as if Imanta Stanionis is interested in that unification. They do not want to face Gayasov, and I think Eddie Hearn said PBC have actually come out and asked if they can get a step aside for the Gayasov fight to go straight into the unification match. I'm guessing they probably feel like Boots is struggling at 147, or maybe they saw enough in that fight to feel like they can poke holes in the defense. They can find the openings to make things very, very uncomfortable for him on that night. And you know what, I don't know, they might be right personally, but it's just funny that obviously now is when people are finally talking about, you know, oh yeah, we'll go for Boots, we'll do that unification. Before, the money wasn't good enough before, but now we're talking about, I guarantee you he'll be happier to take a lot less money to do that unification match now than they were asking for back in the summer after the Avanesian fight, or even before the Avanesian fight, to be real. You've also got what's his name, Brian Norman's father, Brian Norman Sr. He's basically now come out and said, oh, his son's unlocked a new level in the game. Like he's got the cheat code, and you know, he leveled up once and it was nasty, then he leveled up again for the Santillan fight, and now he's unlocked another level in training, and now Boots is food and all this stuff. Is like, you know, Boots is food, but yet you was looking for $2.2 million cash out money to face him before. Why wasn't he food 2 months ago? Why is he food now? Like, the whole thing to me is it's hilarious. Now, that being said, I think Boots showed to a lot of people things that I kind of already knew and saw about him previously. I've always said he's a very good fighter. Offensively, he's great, but I've always believed that defensively, number one, he's not that good, and he's been trading on the fact that he's just a naturally bigger and stronger guy. So even though he's okay defensively, he's not as good as he used to be. Again, I've made reference to when Jamie, shout out to Jamie from Punch Perfect, said something about his defense is excellent, or something along those lines, and he said literally something along the lines of the only time he ever gets hit is if he's choosing to do so to create an opening, or something along those lines. I remember when he said that, and I was still like, I don't believe that. That's not what I've seen from Boots. But he also has never had the level of opposition that is going to make things, you know, tricky and make things uncomfortable. I mean, if we're saying that his best wins realistically are what, Sergey Lipinets, who was a former 140 pounder, maybe even, I think at some point even campaigned at 135 as his lowest weight, but 140 pounder coming up. I mean, I still think the Castillo Clayton win was a really good win, but it was one round, so it was hard to really judge, because I knew Castillo Clayton from before, and I never thought that he would have lost the fight in one round, but he did. But you've got that fight, then who else? Now you've got Chukazan as what the best win. Avanesian as maybe the second best or the third. Lipinets somewhere 1-2. Like, if that's the extent of the wins on the resume, it's time for things to start kicking on, so we can really see what level he is. Because on the eye test, he's got really good skills offensively. Defensively, he needs a lot of work. And I've always kind of believed that. And I think the part of the reason he either needs a lot of work or he needs someone to test him defensively, so he starts tightening up and showing how good he really is. And again, I'm a supporter. I like watching Boots fight, but I've just seen a bunch of issues there from before. Like, he struggles with movement heavily. Like, his switching isn't as seamless as it used to be either. Maybe that's because he doesn't have the same level of energy, but he definitely gets caught with shots on the inside. He trades on the inside way too much, especially for as leaky as his defense is. I know that's a very big Philly thing, but he needs to tighten that up. There's just a lot going there, so I need to see how he gets on with, like, the upper crust. But the only problem is there is no upper crust in 147. I mean, Brian Norman is probably the second heir, but he's still young, so he's green. We don't really know where he's at. I mean, Boots will comfortably take out Barrios. Stanionis is a good fighter, so that might actually be a bit of a test, but he's also someone that will stand and kind of let you tee off before he tries to come back with his own shots, and that obviously could be his downfall. So the test for Boots ain't really going to come until he hits 154 and 160 if he decides to go there, and even 168. I mean, I definitely think he can go to those weight classes because he is a massive guy normally. Like, him making 147 still don't make no sense. And the fact he says, I still make it quite easily. I don't know. Maybe he makes it. Maybe he thinks he makes it easily, but his body is telling him, it's not like you think. The energy ain't where it used to be no more. So, I just want to see if that unification happens. Get the unification, because I doubt he can stay in the division long enough to collect 3 belts unless another unification happens alongside his one, and then maybe he can bring himself back down for one final fight. But just like Ray Ford, if your body's telling you need to go up, listen to it, because the last thing you want to do is get an L on your record on someone that's quote unquote undeserving of that, all because you stayed at the weight way too long, or you get knocked out by a shot because your resistance is gone after boiling your body down one too many times. So I want to see him tighten up on that stuff, but we'll see how things kind of play out moving forward with that one. So looking at this Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight, I don't know. I said this on the live yesterday. There's something about it which tells me I don't know how legit it's gonna be as a contest. I don't know if it is a legit fight between the two. I don't know if it's supposed to be like secret handshakes and body spars. I don't know if it's supposed to be just a little bit of almost a slap and tickle in the ring between the two. So it's very hard for me to make a decision on how I feel like the fight's going to play out. That being said, I've not committed to making a prediction on basis picks. You guys will have to see when the video comes out, or videos, there might be more than one, how I decide to go for that fight, who I decide I think is going to win it, if it is in fact a legit a legit spectacle. But one thing I do know is, looking at that fight, both guys I feel are the type that will break an agreement. Like, I just have a feeling if Jake Paul gets a little bit more froggy than he's supposed to, Mike Tyson is not going to have any issues with, doing something in retaliation. And on the other hand, Jake Paul definitely is a person that knows about a viral moment, or knows about what's good for business or what's good for the brand. And even if there's negative press behind quote unquote knocking out someone's grandfather in the ring, there was still going to be a level of notoriety and articles written about him and eyes on him and metrics and all kinds of data and stuff that goes towards him afterwards. So I feel like even if that fight isn't supposed to be a legit fight, even with all the provisions of the 14-ounce gloves and the 8 2-minute rounds and all that stuff, I just got a feeling that at any moment it can turn into one very quickly. So yeah, I'm going to kind of leave that one there. I just wanted to throw that out there in terms of that. And watching the face-to-face from the two of them kind of makes me feel like both of them know that as well. Like, we might have an agreement now, but all bets are off come Friday night / Saturday morning for us over here. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to put that one out there and see what you guys think. Okay, so I got to address something. I watched an episode of, I think it's called Talk Boxing on TalkSport, normally hosted by Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. I think this week it was Simon Jordan, Adam Smith, and I think Tundé Ajayi was on there. And obviously they're speaking about the Conor Benn stuff and blah blah blah. Then it gets to basically obviously Anthony Yard and stuff. And Simon Jordan said something along the lines of, I would have thought that, Frank Warren would deserve a bit more, or he's been good to Anthony. He's engineered 2 very good opportunities for him to, get a crack at a world title. And Tundé said something along the lines of, well, I mean, you say that, but the only person that can engineer those is the fighter. Like, Anthony was the one that was fighting the fights. So, so did he not have anything to do with it? And I think, Simon Jordan said, oh no, you're right. It is, it's partly him as well. And then I think they said something about, your promoter can kind of help you to navigate certain things. But it's weird that for someone who seems to want to be very controversial and direct and challenge answers and stuff, you've got Simon Jordan that didn't challenge anything about that answer. Because Tunde's 100% right. The fighter's the one that's got to fight the fights. The fighter's the one that's got to win the fights to get into a position, right? But who was Anthony Yard fighting before the Kovalev fight that you say, oh, these are the names that get you to a mandatory position in the WBO? Like, if you can name me one that you would say, yeah, they were the contenders at the time. Travis Reeves wasn't a contender. That's about the only name I can remember off the top of my head. So when you check the resume up until Kovalev, and that's just where we're going at this point, we're just talking about up until Kovalev. Well, how did the fighter be the one that got themselves into that position? That's not the case. Clearly, it was your promoter's very good relationship with that organization that allowed you to be highly ranked and highly favored within those rankings to get put into a position to become mandatory or to get that shot. I'm not even sure if he was technically mandatory at that time. He could have been. Actually, no, I think he was mandatory, because they asked him initially to do the step aside for Canelo, and they said, no, we're not stepping aside. So yeah, he was mandatory. But how do you become mandatory fighting the quality of fighters he was fighting? It had to have been because of the the promoter. Who was it? I mean, what's his name? Soloka, I think, was one of his other opponents. Someone, obviously, Callum Smith fought like a couple years before that at a lower weight. There's a few others on there, but again, they're names that you don't hear them and think, oh, these were the top contenders. So I remember he said that. I was like, okay. Then when he's like, oh, we've never ducked no one, we've never dodged no one, like, we will fight anyone, etc. And they're still talking about a lot of cruiserweights, very much hinting that maybe that light heavyweight task of getting down to 175 is very much a hard thing to do now, which I can understand. But then when you say, okay, well, we ain't duck no one, we ain't dodge no one. Well, I mean, that Bawatsi thing has been going on for 5-6 years. And as far as I'm aware, from everything that I've seen, apart from what you might want to say about this year specifically, I don't think it's ever been Bawatsi's side of the table that has been saying that fight's gonna happen down the line, or we don't need that fight now, we'll do that later. It was always Matchroom pushing for that fight when he was with Matchroom. It was Boxer pushing for that fight when he was with Boxer. I mean, if I remember correctly, was Bawatsi and Yard not supposed to happen at Selhurst Park? And Bawatsi's like, yo, we got the venue, Wagwan. And then you got Anthony Yard in the car. Oh, I had to pull the car over for this one. Listen, like, I want to do the fight, but promotional problems, let me sort that out, and then we can get it on. Bivol, they turn, like, you can't say that you didn't turn down Bivol. Now, here's the thing. Some people, and I don't even know if they circled back to this, because some people are saying, oh, yeah, they turned down Bivol because it was 3 weeks notice after Beterbiev pulled out with the with the knee injury back in June. So Malik Zanad took it. But I know for a fact, and I can't say how I know because it might cost certain people their jobs and relationships, but Anthony Yard was he was offered the Dimitri Bivol fight for that Day of Reckoning card, and that was a good 7 weeks, I think 7 to 8 weeks notice at the time when it was offered. He would have had the same level of notice as Dimitri Bivol, not like there was no other opponents there, and they turned that down. Now, the reason I heard they turned that down, and I put this in a video time ago, was because they was looking for the Bawatsi fight, and that's the fight they wanted to do next. So they turned down Bivol to fight Bawatsi, but then as soon as Bawatsi fight can be made and is all agreed by Queensberry and Boxer and everyone, all of a sudden, oh well, now we've got promotional issues. That to me sounds like 2 ducks back to back, or two turn downs, we will go another route. Then obviously straight after the fight with Vilkans, when you've got the opportunity to say, look, I want the Bawatsi fight next, I'll take that, then I'll go up to cruiserweight and take on this guy, that guy. Oh well, you know what I mean? Yeah, well, you know, there's loads of names. There's Craig Richards, there's Dan Aziz, you know, I mean, Bawatsi's there as well. Like, we can go up to cruiserweight, and it's like, where's the energy? Like, where is the energy for these guys? And I'm just looking at it thinking, are you legit gonna say that you ain't never turned no one down, you ain't never said no to someone, when there's evidence? Certain times, if I didn't care about certain relationships and that, I could put out certain bits of evidence that I have with regards to these things. But again, I'm not trying to mess up certain people's money, so I gotta leave things alone. But at times I get it, don't get me wrong, I get that, you know, when you're ultimately you're backing your guy, you've got your partner's back, or you're prepared to burn this bridge to maintain this one. But how can you not be questioned on certain things when the evidence and the words is out there? Like, if Frank Warren has literally come out and said he was offered the Bivol fight and said no, how you can then go on quote unquote TalkSport and say we've never ducked or dodged or said no to a fight, yet your promoter, your former promoter, literally has told everyone you had the chance to fight Bivol and you said no? That to me don't make much sense. It doesn't. And then even when obviously they're saying and who is it? He goes, Bawatsi, if the Bawatsi and the Yard fight hasn't happened, it's not Anthony Yard's fault. Like, and then saying, oh well, Bawatsi decided that he wanted to face Hutchinson instead. Well, at that time you just said that you was in promotional problems, that you was in legal issues with Frank Warren and you couldn't fight. So what did you want him to do? Sit on the sidelines and just wait bearing in mind at this point, Hutchinson, coming off of the victory that he had against Craig Richards, was probably in a slightly better position than you in several sanctioning bodies. And this was a straight shot to the world title next. So why would he not take that fight? And then when they say, oh, I need to be active, like I ain't had much activity, whatever. These times the guy had, in the space of 12, 13 months, he had 3 fights in the space of 13 months. Most people don't even have 3 fights in the space of 3 years these days. There was no ring rust. The last fight was in February. Then you fought again at the start of October. So how are we saying that? What? So in those, what is it, 7 months? Oh, all of a sudden, like now I'm rusty and I need another warm up. I need another tune up. The whole thing at this point is just, I can't lie. Look, it is boring to talk about, and I don't want it to seem like I'm constantly on that team and on those people, because it's not even about that. But I just don't like when some of the lies are so blatant and people are just not doing their job, not challenging or not asking the certain questions. But yeah, look, let me leave that one there for now. You guys leave me your comments and let me know what you think. But I don't know, that whole thing didn't sit right with me. There's probably other interviews and that I need to hear to get further context on left, right and center. But yeah, that's just 2 instances in that particular interview I'm listening to. Like why are we doing this? Just, even if you're not going to tell the truth, just don't say anything. That's just, I plead the fifth. I know we can't technically do that in the UK, but do that in it. You know what, I think I'll leave it there. Feel like I did some good work, got some stuff out. Leave your comments down below. Please let me know if there's any other topics maybe that I should have addressed that you guys want me to talk about, and I'll do a separate video, or maybe I'll address it in the live on the weekend. Other than that, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate all of you each and every time. But for right now, once again, the Hardcore Casual out.